It is time to finally put Joey's back together. As you can tell, I got the deer back on the stretching apparatus, and just gonna let that do its thing and stretch for a little bit. It's already stretched a ½ inch just in the few seconds that I've had it on there. I'll snap it out too once I get ready to put it on this, but we're gonna prep the form. What I've done so far this morning, I have put the ear liners in. You just glue them in with your regular high glue. I put a little bit of dye in mine. This is just pink. You could use purple too, but pink's all they had. So I just put a little drop of dye in there just so that it shows through that inner ear skin color. That way my finish works a little bit quicker. I did that and I clayed around the ears. I decided not to do the preset ear butts on this just because I've never done it before. I'm used to doing it like this, so I'm just gonna, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. So I'm gonna show you what we do with the form. Your basic goal is to get this shiny slipperiness off of it. Some guys just poke a bunch of holes. Some guys go really extreme and scratch the crap out of it. I tend to be one of the guys that scratches the crap out of it. So I'll show you what I use for that. These are what I use. I use this larger one for most of the form, and then the little detail stuff that I got to go in and touch up, I'll hit with this thinner one. So let's get after it. I should note too that this is when you're going to add your details in. So most of the time our longer haired deer here in Maine, you're not going to see a whole lot of this muscle detail because the hair is so long. But I do have a couple clients of mine that really prefer me add in a lot more detail. So I'll go in and deepen a lot of these muscle tones, get those nice and deep so that they show up a little bit better. You do have to be careful and not go too deep, because if you do too extreme, you will mix up your hair patterns and it will lay weird and it'll kind of look weird. So there's a fine line with it, but you can do that. It's not super realistic. You seldom ever see a big like muscular deer, but I can see why people like it. It looks cool. You know, makes it look like this big, tough, muscular thing. But as you're going, you're just kind of feeling, and anywhere there's a soft spot. I did the face last night, so that's why I'm not hitting that. Yeah, anywhere you feel it's slippery, just give it another little scratch. And that is basically it. And then you're going to just get the dust off of it. You want that adhesion to be as good as possible. So get as much of that dust off as you can. All right, so now we're going to set an eye. I'm not going to set the entire eye until I get the hide all the way on this thing. So we're just going to set them in place, get them level, then just glue it and throw the hide on. So when I'm talking about level in the form, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Got to get his back as close to level as I can. Helps with that set. As if he was sitting on the wall. And then we can do the eyes. Loosen this up so you can wiggle a little bit. And then I just eyeball them to get them close. And then as you can see, I got black marks in the corner of the eye, just to make it a little bit easier for me visually to see. And then I get the level and I check that. And I'm pretty dang close. And then there's some wiggle in these bars, so as you tighten, you gotta double check. So for your eyes, there's a bunch of different brands on the market. There's a bunch of different hues of brown, a bunch of different sizes, stuff like that. The majority of the deer that you're gonna do here in our state of Maine is gonna have a 32 millimeter eye. You can get white banded, you can get a lot of white, you can get regular, I think they call them a spheric, which has like a little bit more natural shape, which is like what these are. You see how much white in the veining. I'm gonna use something like this if a customer wants some attitude in the deer, or if he wants some like side-eyeing, like he's got his head turned and he's got his head cocked one way and you wanna see some white in the corner of this eye and the back of this eye. I'm gonna use something like that. It's got a lot of white in it. You could use pre-rotated as well, which the brown would be all the way forward and white would be on the back, and you just flip them one way or the other. These are moose eyes. They're bigger, as you can tell, than the deer eyes. And I usually go with the medium brown on my moose eyes. I think most moose have a lighter eye than the deer. My deer that I do, unless a customer specifies, I'm doing just a dark brown. I think it looks the cleanest, and I don't usually do any white. I just do a regular brown, dark brown eye, just like this. I think it's a good clean look. There's no white showing where there shouldn't be white showing. That's what I hate about something that has white like this, is if your eyes aren't perfect, you could have white in a spot that wouldn't naturally be there. So, or at least what you're not going for. This isn't a setting eye, this is just getting it level. So that is the glass eye out of the package. They are not round. They have an indent in the back. And I take a little bit of clay. This is called critter clay. This is what I use to set my eyes in. I just push it into the back. Just like that. It's about all I do, so that it will go into all of these bumps. And then put her in the eye. And I'm gonna have to get in the way here a little bit, probably. So I push that right in. Until that clay starts to pop out. And I feel like it's seated good in there. And then what you got to do, deer's eyes, the majority of the time are level to the ground, whether they're down drinking or their head is up, their pupils will stay level to the horizon. So that's just a mechanism to help keep them safe so they can see. Obviously that's to a certain extent. If their head's all the way up, they can't be completely level, and vice versa. But when you're setting them like this, you want that eye to be level. These darker eyes, I usually need a light. And I'll try to get it just visually close. I try to set all my eyes the same, so I'll push them up into this corner as far as it possibly can go. And then we'll run a level. Like I said, I usually get this level. And then look at my eye. And that pupil's forward just a hair. Perfect. So that one is set. You probably can't see the pupil, but that one is set. It's level. Even though his nose is down a little bit, that pupil is running right with the ground, which is exactly what you're going for. And then all I do here is just fill in those gaps a little bit and fill in the tear duct at this point. And this is just to help lock this eye in a little bit. It's not to do anything other than that. And we use this brand called Critter Clay because it doesn't really shrink, doesn't crack. It's really high quality clay. It's kind of the norm in the industry for setting eyes. You don't have to use it. If you ran out for some reason and you had just your regular air dry clay, that'll work just fine. Okay, so that is all we do right now to this. I will add some regular clay into the mouth here to fill that in, and I'm going to add some little dewlaps on them too. But we won't do that until we get the hide on them. Okay, now we're getting real. It's getting real quick. Time to add the glue. And I don't glue everything. I kind of glue in stages. Okay, and I'll just go vertical with his neck. Add some more good dusting in case we miss something. Okay, so I glue the neck up and then slide the hide on, do the eyes, glue the face up, add any clay work that I want to do to the face, glue the face up, and then the last thing I do is from like the point of the shoulders back. And I'm not always super stingy with my glue. This is also what's going to help that hide slide on better if it is a little tight. The only spot you want to try to avoid initially is where your seam's going to be on the back of the neck. So I usually come down about, I don't know, what's that, 5 inches or so, and then I'll add glue here. But I try to stay away from that spot where the seam's going to be, otherwise you're going to have glue all over everything. And it's not the end of the world. This glue comes out of hair. This is Pro One hide paste. Again, another one of those things that's sort of standard in the industry as far as being reputable. And it's pretty good glue, and it comes out of hair pretty easily. Just wait till it dries and you can brush it right out. All right. Okay, we're doing it. You're going to see me doing this a lot too, because I forget where I set things down all the time. So I'll show you kind of how I snap out a cape. So I get my cape, for example, right now, this cape is about 19.5 inches. So you take them just like this and you literally just snap them. And you work your way down. Throwing some liquids everywhere. So now, even after stretching, he is little over 20 just by doing that. So let's get him on. All right. This is why I always wait to do the eyes until after. Because generally, generally pretty tight to go over that. I don't want to mess up the clay work. Trying to make sure everything's lining up too as you're going along. This brisket isn't way over here. Like right now, this brisket needs to come this way a little bit. Like that. All right, so now I'm at the point where I can, am I even on the camera? I'm at the point now where I can pull the skin off. I don't want to go all the way down and have to pull it back up. So right now I'm at the point where I can pull the skin back off and we can do the eyes properly. So setting eyes is one of those things that's probably the hardest part of this process. Just trying to get that eye shape and everything correct. There's a lot of great reference books out there. Constantly looking at those pictures online. You can give the deer attitude. You can make them look more alert. You can make them look relaxed. I tried to generally follow. If I can find the picture. I generally try to follow this style eye. It's kind of a betweener, kind of relaxed, but you're just looking to get that same shape across the whole thing and have both sides match. So what I'll do is I'll try to get a couple pieces of clay that are bigger and the same size. That way I'm using the same amount of clay on both eyes. So that's kind of the size I'm using for my top eyelids. About the size of a thumbnail. And then for my bottom lids, they're smaller. Bottom lids, there's really not a whole lot to do, to be honest with you. I think that's the biggest mistake I made starting out, was adding way too much clay to the eyes. There really isn't that much to do. So that's about the size for my bottom lids. So got a top lid, bottom lid worth of clay. I'll usually start at the bottom, roll it out to a worm. About like that. And I'll start in the corner and I'll stay right on the bottom of that eye and wrap it. Your low point is about right here in your eye. I'll wrap it and then pinch it off. And we can get into shaping. This is just getting it, the material in the spot right now. We're not worried about shaping too much right at the moment. Smooth all that out. You kind of want this to be an egg shape when you're done. So that's about what I do with the top lid. And then I will flatten out the bottom a little bit. And I lay that pretty close to the back of this pupil. The very back of the pupil. I'll lay that pretty close to that, and then my high side's on the front of that pupil. And again, we're just going to wrap that. And we're going to be like that. You can take your extra. There's usually a pretty decent gap there. I'll take whatever's extra on that once I pinch both sides off, and I'll worm that up and put it in here just as a filler. And then you can do that. And then I just have a little rubber-ended tool somewhere, maybe. That's got a point on it, and I just try to get that shape down. If you have to remove some clay, go ahead and remove some clay. I don't get super crazy detailed yet. I'll do most of that once my skin is on. But look at it, got a nice egg shape to it. It's got a nice curve up into here, then it kind of flattens out. You can also see the eyeball from the back. Deer can see a lot of angles. They can see behind them as well. Not, obviously to a certain extent, but nice shape to that. So then we just do the same thing to the other side and try to get them as close as possible right now. So as you can tell, those shapes are pretty dang close right now. That's about as close as we're gonna get it for the time being. A lot of guys will spend a lot of time on this prior to putting the skin on. I generally like to tweak it a little bit more once I have everything tucked and I can shape them a little bit better. That's usually when I spend more time on them, but I got them roughed in. They're pretty close to each other. Not perfect, but pretty dang close. Now all we're gonna do is we're gonna glue up the face, which I'm not gonna show because it's the same as gluing up the body. I'll put a little bit of clay around the lip line and we'll slide the face over. Okay, face is up and on. Lower them back down to a height you can actually work on a little more betterer. Now we can slide on the rack. This is why I like to do like the preset skull, because they just falls right into place. Don't tighten all the way down. I kind of do like a like you put on a wheel, kind of alternate where you're tightening. And that's also why I like to use Bondo, because it gives that skull something to push up against. If it was just skull and you were really driving these screws home, you could crack that skull plate. Just like that. First thing I like to do, another thing too, I just keep a water bottle handy, and every once in a while I'll spray anything that's just been out for a while, just to keep it moist so it doesn't dry up too much. But first thing I like to do is sew, because I hate sewing. So that's the first thing I like to try to do, is sew the deer up, and then I will usually work from the nose back on them. So we're going to sew this up, get the ears in place. First thing I'm going to do is try to attach around the antler burrs and just do a quick double knot. This is nothing fancy. There's usually 2 points on here that will have to connect where you originally made your cut. So just poke through. The only reason I do this is just mainly because it helps hold things in place for me. I can't remember where I learned it, but it was definitely another taxidermist. On the YouTube. So you just run one tag in through this way, and then you come around the antler, very important tip, through the other point. You run that tag in through. Tie those 2 points together. Just a few knots like that, and then that just helps hold. It's like a third hand for me. Cut off these. I usually try to leave my tag ends on stuff like that a little bit long, because as I'm sewing up everything else, I'll sew over the top of them so they're underneath the hide and not poking out. All right, now we can try to mess with these ears. Get them roughly set. Nothing too crazy, but in somewhat of a position that they're going to be in. This deer's fitting literally perfect. This actually looks like a deer. It always is like, gotta get worse before it gets better kind of mentality with these. So I'm going to turn off the camera and turn on some music and just kind of chill out and do some sewing. I only have like a 8.5 to 10 inch seam on the back to do, so it won't be too bad. And then once that's sewed up, we can get more into the details and everything else here. So I don't know why I did that. That was a weird thing. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, just like that, we are sewed up. Can't even tell. Pretty cool. Okay, now we're going to get you back on the tripod, and we are going to taxi the skin. So like I said before, I will start with the nose. I'm going to try to get that lined up. And then once that's lined up, I can tuck front lip. Get that center. And then tuck that lip right there. skin out. A little bit. I think I'm going to just tuck this whole upper lip first, actually. So just try to find the corner. Let's flip them over here. And trying to find that corner of the mouth. Set that in place. There's that. I wiped off a lot of my glue on my chin, so I'll add some more into there. I don't like much lower lip showing, so I tuck a lot of that anyway. This is when you can kind of start to move some skin around. This is when I like to use stout rougher. Just make little adjustments here and there. That's driving me crazy. Plenty of time has done it. Pat just center as you can. Sometimes you gotta do a little bit of combing out to see what you got here. It's got a weird shape throat patch in this one. There we go. Walking that white patch over a little bit. Keep tucking. Everything's got got hairlines, you know, so you gotta try to follow those hair patterns. Everything has a place to go. Remember when I was doing the prep, I bored out that corner of the mouth, and this is why there's a lot of material that's got to try to get put into there. The more room you have in that particular spot, the better. Those few laps, it's just something subtle. I don't like making them too big that it takes away from the deer. Just a little bit of, I don't know if you can see those, just a little bit of dewlaps there. Once it's combed out, it'll look better. Mouth is tucked. Nose time. So your nose has hair patterns just like everything else. You want this hair edge that's right here. So this hair edge, see where the nose pad itself is here. There's a little bit of hairs. You want those tucked up and under that nose. You're pushing air out too as you're going. See that? Just that little bit of indentation right there, that's that little bit of detail that just kind of brings a little bit of life back, I think. On the nose and eye skin, I don't usually do a whole lot of glue on the inner nose itself. I'll do it on the actual skin. I got this from Cedar Creek Chronicles, I think it is, on YouTube. It's from Alabama Boy or Mississippi Boy, something down south somewhere. But he's got a pretty good channel. I've learned a lot from him. And then we tuck. And then that plastic wrap that we use to wrap the skull in, that's where that comes into play now. Because you'll cut a chunk of that off. This just is so you get a couple of uses out of it, basically, just being frugal. And then you tuck it in to help hold that skin and dry. If you don't use enough, redo it. You're looking at the top, make sure your nose pad line is symmetrical, make sure these darker line where it transitions to your lighter lines is symmetrical. You're never going to do perfect. Just keep that in mind, but you can try. Even when they were natural beasts out on their own, alive, they were not perfect. But it is your responsibility to do everything you can to try to make them that way. We owe it to them. Okay. Roughed in nose, roughed in ears, roughed in mouth. Got your little dewlappers right there, which is a little extra skin. Just give it a little bit more mature look. So now we're gonna rough in an eye. Kind of the same thing as before with the glue. Fold out the skin. And then put some glue on that lid. And we're going to just try to position this eye roughly where it needs to be. And then we're going to start tucking. Tucking that tear duct. Get that pushed right up against that. That's why I don't really get too detailed leading up to putting the skin on. Because as you can tell, you're moving a lot of stuff around. All this stuff right here is scars. So this dude was a fighter at one point in his life. I don't usually get too crazy on the eyes until the clay starts to harden up a little bit more. It's a lot easier to deal with when it's a little bit stiffer. Tends to stay better. I'll try to get it close. So that's close. I'll leave that for now. I'll do the other one, and then we'll cut you guys back on here. Okay, both eyes are roughed in. Now I'm just kind of going over and starting to put stuff, actually doing the taxiing of the deer and trying to get everything lined up the same and looking the same. And I'm just going to start kind of working out some of these bunched up areas. You don't want to pull so tight that you can't get everything into where it needs to go. When I was sewing, I also clumped up a bunch of glue on either side of that stitch. So once I was done here, I could push it into that spot I didn't get glued. Okay, now we are going to glue up everything else. Right, now that everything's got glue on it, I like to start on my brisket, get everything in line with that first. You want to make sure here is when you're pulling back this way, you're not pulling and causing a gap underneath that chin. Once I get my brisket in place, I'll take some pins just to help hold it. Pin along that brisket line, just so once I'm pulling and stretching from other angles, I don't accidentally mess that up. Pull it and not notice it. This is another area guys mess up a lot. It's the hair pattern on the leg. They'll get this armpit area all stretched out in weird locations. That's why I like to start with it, because it's got the most going on. Hit it with some staples to help hold it. I'll put a lot more staples in it eventually here, but this is just to help hold everything. I still want to do a lot of pushing out of air and what have you. Okay. Then we'll start pushing some air and glue out of this part of the body. And then I just kind of work my way around. Go to the side. Pushing excess glue out when I'm doing this, and I'm pushing extra air out as well. And the back. Okay, there's Joey's deer. Not done. I'm still going to do a lot of tweaking, fluff them up and all that, but I'll be back after lunch, and I'll touch up the eyes. Give some time for that glue and the ears and everything to set up a little bit. But that's Joey's buck right there. Gonna be up on the wall. Something like that. You'll be looking at him. He's a upright, semi-upright, right turn. Because when you walk in their camp, you'll be walking in. You'll be looking kind of towards the door. But yeah. That is the basic mount. But we still got a lot of little tweaking to do, but we'll let her dry for a couple weeks and then we will do the finish work.